Hey Artie friends! Today, in My Life with ADHD, we're going to talk about asking for accommodations, so keep watching. I'm going to start off by saying that it can be really hard to ask for accommodations. If you live in the US, because I can't speak for anywhere else, there is a sense that if you're not working, it's because you're lazy. If you're not physically able, it's because you're lazy. If you can't pull 8 hours a day during the set work hours, it's because you're lazy. Need time off? Need patience? Need things presented to you in another way? No, no way. You're broken. There's something wrong with you, right? So it can be really scary to ask for accommodations, be it for school, for your classes, for work, or maybe even from your partner. Asking for accommodations, though, can be really important, especially if you're ADHD, whether you're medicated or unmedicated, whether you're seeking the help of a professional or you're going it alone right now. Asking for accommodations can be really difficult. Sometimes it can be easier to have a doctor's note, to have your therapist or your psychologist or your counselor put it in writing what you need. Sometimes you can practice with them, do a role play scenario, which often helps me, to sort of figure out the best way to go about asking for something that sometimes seems unaskable. And in the art community, I 110% get it. Most of us work freelance. Most of us work really weird hours. Most of us have been told that if we deliver something late, that's it. We're not getting another shot at the job. We're done for. We have had some really scary stories presented at us, thrown at us. When I was a SCAD kid, they said you needed to be 3 things: good, fast, or nice. And you had to be 2. I have found that you have to be all 3 of those things, plus Wonder Woman, plus a fan of whatever your employer is super into at the moment. Sometimes it just feels like you have to be everything. So asking for accommodations can be really hard. And I am by no means an expert in advising people on how to ask for accommodations. In fact, I'm talking about this because this is something I'm currently learning how to do myself, and I'm currently practicing how to do. So this is more of me just sharing what I'm going through and sympathizing with you guys. So a lot of us, especially those of us who might work in a more professional setting, maybe we haven't disclosed to our employer that we're ADHD. Maybe we haven't disclosed to our employer that we might need special accommodations. Maybe we haven't disclosed to our partners that we're ADHD. Maybe we haven't really admitted it to anyone and sometimes can't even admit it to ourselves. That can be really hard. There's a lot of misconceptions about ADHD, a lot of misunderstanding, and a lot of people don't really seem to get what it's all about, or they think we're all like Bart Simpson, who I think is overly villainized, but they assume we're flighty, we're inattentive, we're not paying attention, we don't listen, we don't retain anything, we just don't care. Maybe we can't get along with others, we're combative. There's all sorts of misconceptions about ADHD, and there's all sorts of, just kind of everybody gets thrown in the same pot. And no 2 people with ADHD present in the exact same way. No 2 people have the same symptoms. No 2 people learn the same way. No 2 people do anything the same way. I mean, shoot, being a woman with ADHD is very different from being a man with ADHD, just taking hormones into account. So if there's so many differences, it really sucks to be tarred with the same crummy brush you've been tarred with since you were 5, right? Or to be tarred with the brush because someone else you worked with or someone else you know or one of their former employees or one of their friends from high school or whatever did some really stupid things and blamed it on being ADHD. My least favorite ADHD tale is usually told from the woman's side. She is horribly impulsive, stole a car in high school, drinking problem, kids by multiple dads, doesn't know who the dads are. That kind of trope, right? I hate it. That's like everything I'm not. And the media really loves that story. They really love the washed up manic pixie dream girl who's probably ADHD is hopping into her pants as she's hopping out the door. But that's not me, and that has never been me. So the accommodations I need are completely different from the accommodations someone whose life does look like that they need. And right now, we don't have a lot of good representation. There isn't a lot of good mental health representation, period. There isn't a lot of good representation for different sort of neurological differences, right? We just don't get talked about. We're expected to shut up and present like everyone else. And I'm not really a big fan of that, but I do understand following the rules, turning things in when I'm told to turn them in, being respectful of others' time, that sort of stuff. So when we're asking for accommodations, we're not asking for unprofessional practices. We're not asking for things that are unreasonable or out of hand or that would make us unqualified for the job. So I know it can be hard to ask for accommodations. So it helps to embrace humility. And that can be hard for some of us who we've had to present as so normal that we're superlative, just for anybody to know we exist. A lot of women in comics know what I'm talking about. You have to be better than good. You have to be amazing, right? But embracing humility when asking for accommodations is really important, because while some workplaces do theoretically owe us these things, it can get really he said, she said, they said about whether or not the boss actually did it and how open they were to the suggestion, etc., etc., etc. So if you can phrase it in such a way that it's beneficial for the whole, or if you can make it seem like it's beneficial for the whole, and honestly, quite often it is. If you're able to perform at your highest level, that's helping everybody. That's helping you be the best team player you can be. And, you know, being someone with ADHD, we often have unique things to bring to the table. We have energy, we have passion, we have creativity. We can be really motivating. We can be a great team player if you just give us a chance. So finding a way to ask for those accommodations can, and ask them in a way that benefits everybody, can be really beneficial for the whole. Then you need to set reasonable expectations for yourself. That's huge. We often overpromise and underdeliver, or we overpromise and we overdeliver and we burn out. So setting reasonable expectations for yourself and for those who you work with can be really important. Many of us need work hours. I freelance, I take a lot of commissions. People think I don't have work hours, but I try to have work hours. I'm probably not going to reply to your email at 10 o'clock at night. Like, that's not in my, I'm glad you work then, and that's good for you, and that's fantastic. I'm glad you're a night owl. But I need time to, like, be able to hyper-focus on my projects or hyper-focus on going to sleep. So, and I need downtime. I can't answer your emails at 10 o'clock at night. I can't answer your emails at 3 in the morning. And I would really prefer if when people contact me, they keep it all in email and all in a thread, so it's easier for me to find. That is an accommodation. That's just a professional practice in most fields. But it's still worth mentioning because not everybody works that way. Some people work better sending things through Discord. Some people work better sending things through Facebook. Some people set up a Trello board for their commissions. There's a variety of ways that different people work. So if you're going to ask for accommodations, you do have to be reasonable about respecting other people's accommodations or respecting their needs. And that's really what it all comes down to, is respect, needs, and boundaries. And sometimes that's something we have trouble with as people with ADHD. We can get really impulsive, really excited. We might interrupt somebody a whole lot. But you guys know, again, as people with ADHD, we sometimes have auditory processing disorders. So all of the things we might do to others might be things that are horrible for us. So I'm going to talk about the sort of accommodations that I benefit from. And hopefully that will inspire you guys and help you know what sort of accommodations might benefit you. So I appreciate, for larger projects, getting plenty of lead time in the project. I don't like having someone else's disaster dumped on me. I can definitely do cleanup, but if I need to redesign characters, if I need to redesign backgrounds, if I need to help retool a story, I need plenty of time to think. I do my best work when I have plenty of time to think things through, and I can really bring a lot to the project when you give me that time to act. I need rubrics. I need clear expectations. I had someone email me the other day, and she was perfect. She had her reference. She had what she wanted, both written out, O-N-E, and the number in parentheses, so I could very quickly parse it. She was very, very specific, and I love that because I'm not guessing. I know what she wants, and it's not going to take us 6 emails to get this hammered out. We can get this done in 3. So if you come to me with very clear expectations, very clear ideas of what you want from me, I can deliver on that. And if you're not super sure what you want, that's fine too. You just have to be a little more patient with me. I'm not a mind reader, so a little bit of back and forth is to be expected. I need clear feedback and direct suggestions. I really cannot do, oh, make it more friendly. I need like, hey, you need to greet them in the beginning of this portion of the copy, and then you need to thank them at the end. And I know that sounds super basic. It's a very basic example, but that's what someone like me needs. I need actual editing. I don't need, it's hard for me to articulate. I do a lot of group work and I do a lot of secretarial work within that group. So it means I write a lot of copy for the group. And it's not always perfect. I'm often just like putting down a first draft. I'm open to suggestions, but when someone scratches through literally everything I wrote, I can't do anything with that. So that is something that does not benefit my work style. It does not bring out my best work, and it frankly makes me not want to work with those people in the future. So clear feedback and direct suggestions are great for me. I really need praise for job well done. You can't just assume I know. You have to tell me. I am so used to internalizing and trying to read the room and trying to read people that I just assume the worst, which is bad on my part. That's terrible to do, but it's what I do. You guys who are also ADHD, you probably know we're used to being the ones who's fussed at. We're used to being the ones who are off in left field somewhere. We're used to being the ones who are not quite on the right beat. So when we're doing something right, we often assume we're doing something wrong. For years growing up, every project I did that had like creative freedom, right? I would end up agonizing. I would come up with a really neat idea and then I would agonize about doing it because no one in the class was doing that. And it's like, well, am I just doing this wrong? Do I not know how to turn in a project? And yet I'd get really good grades. So I obviously second guess myself a lot. So I really need praise for a job well done. And hey, who doesn't? Who doesn't benefit from a good job? Who, when they're praised for their good work, doesn't want to go out and do more, right? It is the cheapest, easiest thing you can do to pat somebody on the back and mean it and compliment them, especially when they're doing something for you or something that benefits like a group effort. Just a very easy thing to do, and it doesn't cost you anything. I also need frequent feedback. So if we're working on something longer form, I will probably send you various iterations. And the reason for that is I don't want to get so far in the project and then you change your mind and then we have to like go way back, or you just assume I don't know what I'm doing. So I will probably send you the character designs and I'll probably send you the thumbnails. And then when I finish the roughs, I'll send you the roughs. And if I have a question, I'll probably ask you the question, because when you work with me, it's very collaborative. And that doesn't work for every job situation, okay? I've done jobs that were freelance where I was just expected to like flat the image, right? So that's not a job where they really want to have to put on kid gloves to handle me. So I know there aren't job situations where that's a good fit for me necessarily. I need time to plan, to make lists and make a schedule. So one of the biggest things I struggled with in any art class is when a teacher expects you to draw on the spot. Just start drawing. No thumbnail, no sketch, no time to think about what you want to draw. Just do it. Just do it right now. I would have anxiety attacks over it. I hated it. I can do that with writing things. I can't do it with drawing things. It just doesn't come naturally to me. I need time to like kind of brainstorm, kind of riff, figure out what I want to do, what would be funny, what would work really well with the crowd. So I need time to plan, to make lists and a schedule. I also need room for improvisation or firm and fun boundaries to work within. That's why I enjoy doing all these monthly challenges, is they provide a time frame and they provide boundaries. And I'll often set rules for myself, what media I'm going to use or what colors I'm going to use, or there's just, I will add my own boundaries. Like every time I go to Louisiana, I end up being like, I'm going to do a cheap art supply thing, because it's a challenge with boundaries and a short time frame. So that explains the boundaries, and I guess it explains the improvisation, because I usually go without, like, I'm not going to, like, we'll go and not bring Cara pages, right? Because I'm going to work on challenges instead. And I really, really benefit from someone else to bounce ideas off of. my ideas off of them. And I really need someone who's into what I'm talking about and gives me feedback and gives me praise. It can't just be like a dead-end, full stop wall of velvet. Nothing bounces back. I need someone who is interested in what I'm doing. And when I have someone to bounce ideas off of, I can come up with some really great stuff. And I love working with other people. I also need time to take walks to clear my head, to expend excess energy, and just to think. And for a freelancer, sometimes that can be really hard because our days get really weird. You might get a job at 12 o'clock at night and end up working until 10 the next morning. And then you're wrecked for the whole day. So for me, that's something I have to make as an accommodation for myself, is that I need that time to burn off that energy. Otherwise, I get really cabin fevery and a little bitey. I also need to color code my planner. I need visual reminders. They have to be there, and I have to have a physical planner. I've tried online organization. I've tried Trello. I've tried Google Calendar. I have a smartwatch. I have a smartphone, and those are great, but nothing beats being able to color code my planner. I think I've shown it to you guys in the past. I've definitely shown it in blog posts and videos where I talk about how I organize so that I can get the YouTube channel done and get my blog done and get my comic done. So you guys have seen that I use different colors to denote different things, and that's really helpful for me. I also really need projects with clear stages. So comics can be a great example of that, because for me, there are clear stages when I make comics. There's the script, well, there's a synopsis, so that's an overarching sort of short version of the story. There's the script, there's the thumbnails, there's the roughs, then I do some digital correction, then there's the pencils, then comes the inks or the watercolor, and I do all of those in batch. And batch means I complete that entire stage before I move on to the next one. And loads of webcomic artists do a page at a time. I've tried that. I hate it. So I'm not a page at a time kind of gal. I am 10 pages at a time kind of gal. So I need projects with clear stages. I also need time for journaling, for reflecting, or for doing vlogs, just so that I can kind of think about why I feel what I feel and what I learned, and what can be done in the future to improve. It's a little bit like self-critique. I think that's really important, and it's great for growth. And I also, and this might be the biggest one, I really need to be in a community and feel like I contribute something of value. And this is the thing I struggle with the most as somebody who's self-employed, as somebody who does not get the chance to engage in person very often. I often feel like everything I do kind of goes in the garbage can. Like, I mean, with my life with ADHD as kind of an exception, because you guys have been really good about engaging me and talking to me and opening up and sharing, and I'm just humbled and touched. Everything else I do is kind of weird sometimes, because I will get a lot of kind of, I try to ask questions in my videos, and I'll get like, good video, or boy, I wish I had a Michaels here, things like that, you know what I mean? But that's not really feedback, and that's not really engagement. And then I'll get somebody who makes like a really pointed comment, like, gosh, it seems like you hate blah, blah, blah. Why do you even inbox it if you're going to be so bitter? Right? I know, it's funny that I'm like, about videos where I'm, but that's kind of the point of those videos, and I feel like I do give fair warning for the most part for that kind of stuff, but I don't know. That's fine, whatever. They just wanted to see what was in such and such a box, or what colors were in such and such a palette, and they got a whole face full of snark, and they're not into that. I get it. But I often feel like I don't have anything to contribute, and I don't have anything of value, which is like a weird dichotomy in my head, because I have a lot of formal education and I have a lot of experience teaching workshops, and I've done comics for almost 2 decades now. So like, I'm torn, because it's like, all right, I do have a lot of experience and I do have a lot of education and I have the diploma to back it up, but I'm also in a community where we kind of crap on people who have education because not everybody can afford it. So a way to kind of egalitarianize that is to just be like, oh, well, you don't need it. So that kind of creates this like unspoken thing that like, if you have it, it's because you weren't good enough to hack it without it. Or people with that sort of education spend a lot of time being like, oh, you don't need it, you don't need it, you don't need it. So we constantly devalue what we have to offer to the point where people sincerely believe we don't have anything to offer. So And I also have done a blog on comic craft and on watercolor with some alcohol marker stuff and convention stuff for like 10 years now. And the engagement, I mean, the time I put into researching and writing and photographing that blog is just enormous, right? And that's on top of my own experience and my other years of doing these things. And like, my comment system is broken, to be fair. Blogger just eats the comments. I don't see them. But nobody talks to me about it on Twitter. And Twitter is like my main, where I like to talk to people. People only email me when they have like a hyper specific question about alcohol markers. And I can't use it for anything. Like, I've tried contacting companies and being like, hey, what would it take to become a company rep? What would it take to become a product rep? What would it take to do a series of tutorials for you guys? What would it take to da-da-da-da-da? And inevitably, I never hear back. Or if I hear back, well, you're not really popular enough, or we don't really sponsor anybody, except there's like 6 blogs that they sponsor, that kind of thing, right? So, and then when I bring up my feelings about these things, because I have these really complicated feelings about my art outreach, because on one hand, I feel like I'm a garbage artist who should just shut up and disappear and go away. On the other hand, I recognize that I'm a very dedicated, devoted woman who's put a lot of time into learning how to do these things and is trying to share what she's learned with people who maybe don't have as much experience or can't afford the education. And I just haven't quite hit my stride. I haven't quite hit something that works. But like, my friends don't want to talk about this. Like, I think it makes them very uncomfortable. And I respect their discomfort, but I would like to find somebody I could talk to about this, because I'm open to change. I'm open to feedback. I'm open to direct things I could do. I can't always enact those changes immediately, or some of those changes are things I tried and didn't land at the time, but I'm always open to that. I do want to change. I do want to grow, and I do want to improve. And when it comes to like this channel, and when it comes to my blog, and when it comes to how to be a con artist, I just really feel alone and trapped and sad and like a failure. And it's because I never found a community that embraced those sides of what I do. In fact, to an extent, doing a kidlit comic and having it as a web comic and working in traditional media, that puts me in a weird position as well. And I think I make people really uncomfortable because it's something I want to get paid to do, and it's something I want to do professionally, and I pursued all this education, and I belong to like a CBWI, and so like, I'm very serious about it, but I want the monies. And a lot of people have just kind of like accepted the fact that that's not going to happen for them, or traditional publishing isn't for them, or they don't want to relinquish control. Like, there's a lot of respectable reasons why you don't want to do that. But I think the fact that I do makes them really uncomfortable. And so I just feel really alone a lot. And I do have friends, and I do have friends that I talk to, and, you know, I'm not like loneliest unicorning here, but I really think if I could address those other aspects, I would really be able to do even more. Like, living here in Nashville has really been frustrating for me because I do a lot of cons, I talk to a lot of people, I try to talk to a lot of librarians, I try to talk to a lot of teachers, and I always tell them how much I would love to come in and do workshops, how much I would love to talk to your class, and they seem excited at the time, and then nothing ever happens. Or like, I've contacted Metro Arts several times because they have like a kids drawing camp. I've contacted them numerous times over the years about wanting to come in and teach, and they just never seem to have room. We don't do guest artists. We don't have guest artists. We never have room for that. And it's just really frustrating to live in a place where it's like, I can keep bashing my head against the wall, but I have nothing to contribute here. What I have to offer is not valuable here. No one cares. But I also know that's not true because I do all those cons. I meet a lot of teenagers who are very excited about what I do and would really like for me to be able to come in. And I know I'm not alone in this sentiment. I know it's not uncommon, but it's really been grinding me down for a few years. So I know I'm not able to do my best work, and I know I'm not bringing my best to the table, and I'm just not taking the chances I should anymore because it's really kind of ground me down. So anyway, we talked about accommodations. Those are the accommodations that I don't even necessarily consider those accommodations. I mean, I do benefit from a convention where I don't have a tuba in my ear for 2 days going bah, 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 playing the Cowboy Bebop song off key over and over again, which was MTAC. But that's not, again, that's not MTAC's fault. That's those people's fault because they were asked to not do that. But like clearly that is not a situation that I shine in. That is definitely an accommodation I would benefit from, not to have them near me or near anyone. I don't think anyone benefits from having tubas in their ears for an entire convention. Or needing someone to riff ideas off of. That's pretty common, especially for like comedy writers. They usually have someone they can bounce ideas off of. So some of these accommodations aren't really accommodations, but because so many of us work freelance, so many of us work from home, so many of us work alone, we have to go out of our way to seek these things. So I like ending these My Life with ADHD with either some advice, which this is something I'm practicing because I'm practicing being okay with my brain being the way it is, and I'm practicing being okay with who I am even if I can't perform to the level I think other people can perform at. And that's just me guessing based on internetiness, because we don't know. Unless you know someone super personally and you are invested in every little element of their lives, you don't know what other people are going through. All we're doing is making assumptions, and sometimes that's really toxic for our own health. But, I lost my train of thought. See? That's an accommodation I need. I need help not losing my train of thought. But I like asking you guys what you guys do to help yourselves, or share an experience, or something you work with, and it helps me feel less alone. And I think it's good to talk about these things. I think you can figure out a lot just vocalizing them or typing them out with somebody else who's going through the same thing. So for those of you who work in a traditional work setting, I do not want to encourage you to do anything that might jeopardize your job, that might jeopardize your work relationships, that might make your life harder. And I do not have the experience. I mean, I've asked for these accommodations when I was a student. I've asked for these, I've had to write emails like, oh, my dad has cancer, literal truth. My dad has cancer. Can I turn in this project a little bit later? Oh, I have a spider bite that went necrotic and they're going to scoop out all the pus. Can I come to class 30 minutes late? And sometimes people are very receptive to it, and sometimes people are horrible about it and make you feel like you're a failure and a monster. So I don't want to encourage you guys to do anything that will jeopardize you, make you very uncomfortable, make you sick emotionally, sick mentally, or sick physically. So take everything I said in this with a bit of a grain of salt. But let me know how you guys, if you guys have any advice for asking for accommodations in a professional way, if you guys have any resources on how you could do that in a professional setting, because I know we are protected once we're hired. It's kind of the hiring process where that can be something in jeopardy. And if you're comfortable doing it, maybe share with me some of the accommodations you need to do your best work. So thank you guys so much for joining me for another My Life with ADHD. You guys have been phenomenal, and I look forward to sharing another week with you guys. So I will see you again next week. Bye, guys.